Welcome everybody to the August edition of our Weiler Wednesday webinar. My name is Nate Schmidt. I'm the Director of Marketing at Weiler Abrasives Group, and I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Today, I'm joined by Andrew Shadell. He's our District Sales Manager out of Tennessee, as well as Elliot Shepard, who's our Associate Product Manager for our metal fabrication business. They're going to be talking to you today about aluminum applications and solutions. This is a topic that's been requested by you, our audience, through the surveys that we do. And as you probably know, there's a lot of unique challenges and applications related to aluminum, so that's what they're going to focus on covering today. Before we get into the webinar, just a couple tips on Zoom. You're probably becoming experts at this by now, but just a couple tips. We've muted all the lines to prevent any background noise. We're going to have a contest about midway through the webinar where we'll have a giveaway. We'll ask a question. You can submit your answer via the chat function within Zoom. We'll also use the Q&A function within Zoom. We'll take questions throughout the webinar. You can post a question in the Q&A at any time, and we will answer those questions at the conclusion of the webinar. And then lastly, we use a function called polls. You'll see a poll pop up on your screen. We'd encourage you to take the poll and participate. Before we jump into the webinar, just a couple quick updates on our response to COVID-19. We continue to be manufacturing around the globe and producing products to help all those critical industries that need our products through these challenging times. And as we get back out into the field, just wanted to share a couple updates on how our field sales team is engaging with our customers and our distribution partners. We're doing that both virtually, like we're doing today, through Zoom and other technology to conduct virtual training events, troubleshoot applications and provide solutions to our customers. We're also back in the field in many areas where it's safe, and we're following all of the local guidelines and CDC guidance related to social distancing, wearing masks, sanitizing, and other local requirements to make sure that we stay safe and that we are coming to your facilities in a safe way. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We can accommodate your specific needs as it relates to abrasives, and we can do that remotely or in person at your facility. Without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to Andrew Shadell. Take it away, Andrew.
Hi, everyone. Again, it's great to be here. And again, my name is Andrew Shadell. As Nate said, I'm the District Sales Manager for Weiler Abrasives based out of Tennessee. And today, co-hosting with me is Elliot Shepard, the Associate Product Manager for Weiler based out of Cresco, Pennsylvania. We're going to be covering a wide array of topics relating to aluminum. First of all, we will discuss safety, which is paramount in any working environment. And then we'll cover a general overview of aluminum properties, some of the issues that you can run into while grinding and cutting and finishing on aluminum, contamination concerns. And then we will also today be introducing, or should I say, Elliot's going to be introducing the Tiger Aluminum Flat Disc, brand new product line that we're coming out with. And then we will have time for Q&A for those who may have questions. All right, first thing we're going to look at, as mentioned, we're going to be looking at safety. And safety is always paramount when dealing with abrasive usage. Please make sure to follow all safety precautions and have proper PPE checked and ready before the job begins. That includes making sure you have gloves, you have the proper safety glasses, you have the proper face shield, respirator if needed, also the tool guards, depending on what kind of abrasive or wire brush you're using. Please have the proper tool guard and the proper shoes, or steel toe shoes or boots in particular. Also, something else that Weiler has that really helps us stand out amongst the competition is a program that we have called SPOT. Now, SPOT stands for Speed and Size, Pressure, Orientation, and Time. Now, the good thing about it is that it's a good way to add value to a visit. For example, this is a 30-minute class, and let me clarify a little more on it. You can go to a distributor and you can do a lunch and learn, or we can, or we can go with a distributor. I typically go with a distributor on a joint sales call. We will have the added value of bringing in, discussing what we hopefully can sell at this location, and then we'll do a spot training, which takes a little less than 14 minutes on a video, and then another 15 minutes for Q&A. So it's about a 30-minute session. Sometimes we go a little longer, and it allows for us to go down into the shop and discuss wear and tear patterns on abrasives and really kind of help them optimize and their safety in their work environment. Also, if you would like this to be an opportunity, if you'd like to learn more about spot training, please contact your local district sales manager based out of your location for an in-person or online spot training option. And also what we're going to be looking at now is Elliot's going to be covering processing and post-processing safety.
All right, thank you, Andrew. I appreciate the introduction. So as Andrew said, my name is Elliot Shepard. I'm an associate product manager for Weiler Abrasives. And just really quick, I just like to go through some processing aluminum safety points, some things that I've seen out in the field and I've dealt with as a fabricator. So to start off, as I started to process aluminum grinding, cutting, using coated abrasives on aluminum as I was younger, I would use a lot of lubricants, waxes. A lot of people have seen people use wax sticks that will apply to a coated abrasive beforehand. And that's to make sure that that aluminum doesn't load. So we don't have that aluminum sticking to the grains of the abrasive and kind of clogging it up, right? So it doesn't remove at the right rate. One thing you'll see when these types of lubricants or wax sticks will be used is that that wax is going to shed. And when it sheds, it's going to go on the floor, it's going on the table, it's going to go on your clothes. And especially when it gets on the floor, we've seen specifically shops turn basically into ice skating rinks because of the amount of wax that has been deposited on the floor. So with these few products that we'll be introducing here in the next few minutes, these are aluminum specific, so you do not need to use these types of waxes or lubricants. One thing I want to note too is I've actually seen people use WD-40 liquid wrench on abrasives to make it not load, and that's extremely, extremely dangerous. So please just don't use any type of like accelerant, WD-40 or anything like that, because it is extremely flammable. And as you know, or if you don't, aluminum is extremely flammable itself. They've actually used it in fireworks. So it is extremely unsafe to put any type of product that will be flammable near it. And then some other things to talk about is maybe some dust collection systems, and then how we get to deal with the cleanup afterwards. So I just want to bring into a little bit of a story that I dealt with a few years ago. We had OSHA come and do a spot check at one of my shops, and our metal shop was attached to a wood shop, and they decided that they wanted to cut some aluminum extrusion on their table saws. So OSHA came in and did a walkthrough and then basically went through the dust collection system and found aluminum chips in the bottom of the dust collection bag. And that's a huge no-no. That's something that shouldn't have happened. They never should have used those aluminum extrusions on those table saws. So basically what had happened is we got fined and we got shut down for 24 hours for a full cleaning so we could get all of that aluminum out of the system. So if you're ever using dust collection systems, we want to make sure that it's completely cleaned out beforehand if you're using it for aluminum, and then completely cleaned out afterwards. We want to be able to segregate that aluminum dust as much as possible. And then offhand grinding. So if we're in a shop that uses any type of carbon steel, and then we rotate that to an aluminum, we want to make sure that we do very good cleaning before we start working with aluminum. We want to be able to segregate the area to be able to make sure that the aluminum dust is going to stay where we want it to, and try and get as much space around that aluminum dust as possible. There's things like explosion-proof shop vacs that you can use as something to collect the dust. And then there's also wet dust collection systems that do a great job for aluminum dust as well. So we'll just keep that in mind as we're processing aluminum. And then as you look at some of these products that Andrew's going to be talking about next, just keep in mind how to clean up, how to segregate the area, and then trying to be as safe as possible with these products. All right, Andrew.
All right. Thanks, Elliot. What we're going to be covering next, we're going to be looking at general characteristics of aluminum, and that includes the basic versatility of that particular product, the aluminum chemical structure, and then we're going to look at some common challenges when dealing with aluminum. So most of us in some form or fashion have used aluminum somewhere in our daily lives. Aluminum is a very versatile material that's used across, a variety of applications and industries. For example, many of you have run into aluminum in the automotive industry. And I know recently we've had some good opportunities and wins in the aerospace industry, in particular in Florida. And we also have, aluminum is very common for those of you that are on the coast, is in the marine industry and also in the construction industries. They're prevalent areas for aluminum. Now, before I get into the chemical structure, we're going to talk about cutting and grinding challenges and loading issues because of grain. I want to tell you a little story recently. I had a large end user for one of my biggest distributors in Alabama give me a call. They had a loading issue with a flat disc while grinding on hard to reach aluminum welding fillets. Now, I asked them what they were using on the aluminum workpiece, and it was just a basic, it was a good mid-range disc that had a grain and structure and design that was just not conducive to their style of grinding and what they were doing. We at Weiler try not to give just an apples to apples comparative product to customers. Our job as Weiler district sales managers is to determine what's the best product for your application. Now, and if an apples to apples is the best choice, then we'll do it. But our job is just ask those questions, figure out what you're working on, and really add value to potentially with our visit and samples. So after I had that discussion with that distributor, I sent in the Tiger angled ceramic flat disc to the end user direct. And that's an excellent flat disc for grinding on aluminum. And the disc was $2 higher than what they were paying for with the previous disc, but they went with it. And the reason they did is because they had considerable less loading issues. It was rated contaminant free, and I'll clarify more what that means a little later in my talk. And also it allowed them to reach and grind and welding fillets in angled locations. So all around, this saved them money and time since they weren't changing disc very frequently. So let's tie that in. First of all, the grinding challenges. I mean, they didn't have a proper grain structure. It wasn't compiled directly for being used on aluminum. What we need to know first is aluminum is a softer metal with a low melting point compared to, say, steel. And it can gum up or load on an abrasive during cutting, grinding, and finishing. And that's another thing. We just have to be conscientious of that and be very thoughtful as we go into processing aluminum. Another aspect that we need to know about the chemical structure of aluminum is there's several different styles. There's 1,000 through 7,000. Now, you're going to traditionally see 3 styles, the 3,000, 5,000, and 6,000. And let me clarify what that is. The 3,000 you're going to see very frequently. You're going to see that in gutters and siding that you see on our homes and in businesses. We're also going to see those of you that traditionally work with shipbuilding or in the marine industry are going to see a lot more prevalency of the 5,000 series. And if you work in the pipe and construction industries, you're going to see a regular occurrence of the 6,000 series typically. Some other areas that you're going to have issues relating to working on aluminum common challenges is, for example, oxidation, which is basically the idea where aluminum is exposed to the atmosphere, it develops an oxide layer. If that oxide layer is not removed before welding the aluminum, it can cause imperfections such as inclusions, which is basically a solid particle in liquid aluminum alloy, or porosity, which can be caused by the gas becoming trapped in the weld pool. It can also result in material burn through. Remove this layer with a dedicated stainless steel brush that's got the finest wire that you can find that is stainless steel, like I just said, before welding on the aluminum. Also, the possibility of contamination is more prevalent with aluminum than it is, say, common metals like steel. But also, as working with stainless steel, just like with working stainless steel, aluminum you have to be careful. Make sure when you've got a dedicated wire brush or abrasive, make sure it stays dedicated onto the aluminum and you don't switch into another kind of product that you're going to be grinding on. Don't switch the steel and come back to it. You'll produce cross-contamination. Make sure that the wire, again, is stainless steel. It's not carbon steel. And make sure that the abrasive you're using is specifically designed for aluminum and also does not contain iron. Now, be sure to use abrasives. Ours are specifically stated, and they're going to be stated as contaminant-free. And what that means, and I said I'd mention that earlier, and someone actually asked this question about this, kind of a pre-question before we started. It means that a disc has less than 0.01% of iron, sulfur, and chlorine in its mixture. Another reason why it's important to follow these and just to be thoughtful as you go into processing aluminum is more expensive than other materials, so replacement and repair cost can be much higher than should it become damaged. Mistakes or rework are costly, both in labor time and in the scrap material that you're going to lose. And don't forget, it's easy to gouge due to the nature of it being softer, so it's important to be careful when cutting or grinding. Now, let's look at some of the options or the options that Weiler has options Weiler has for us in the bonded line. And we're going to be looking at the cutoff wheels, and we're also going to be looking at grinding wheels and our combo wheels. Now, before we get into that, I had another occurrence where I actually had an opportunity to sell this Tiger aluminum Type 1 cutoff wheel. I was in Arkansas in February, and I haven't been back to Arkansas since the COVID hit, so I'm looking forward to hopefully getting back there possibly later in the year. I went to Lonsdale, Arkansas, and if you know anything about Arkansas, it is loaded with small towns. This place had a population of 101, but it had a facility that was about 5 times that many people working there. I went to a boat manufacturer. Now, this just isn't any boat manufacturer. This was a high-end duck boat, and if you know anything about Arkansas, South Arkansas, near Stuckard, that is duck hunting is king, and people are willing to spend money to get what they want so they can enjoy their hobby. Got a call from their distributor. They've been selling them just a basic AO cutoff wheel. The wheel was good, but it was loading. They were getting midway through, had to get rid of it, and was just constantly cycling through a lot of the wheel, several of these cutoff wheels. So what we did was an opportunity for me to send in samples of the Tiger aluminum cutoff wheel, and they got to try it. And they also realized something that we had a conversation about it, because I also got to visit them, is that our conversation was that we realized there's no such thing as one wheel that fits all. You need to find a variety of products, for if you want to, process aluminum, you can work with our, our Weiler bonded line. You want to work on stainless steel, you can work with our bonded inox line. I mean, there's a variety, and there's more than just that, but those are just kind of giving you an idea of how there's a variety of lines for a variety of material used. And they switched. They noticed the life of the disc lasting longer, and very limited loading occurred on the product. And those two changes showed a cost savings that they were looking for. Now let's look a little at these two discs. Now, the first one is Tiger Aluminum Type 1, and then we're going to be looking at the Tiger Aluminum Cutoff Type 27. Now, as I go through the cutoff wheels, and as I also go through the grinding wheels, you're going to hear me do a lot of not a lot of repetition, but you're going to have some, especially when it comes to non-loading. But hey, the key to repetition is it usually produces retention. So if I keep saying it, you're bound to remember it, and that's the key to getting out here and selling these products. First one we're going to be looking at is the Tiger Aluminum Type 1 cutting wheel. This is designed for performance cutting and extended life on aluminum. These wheels have a blended grain mixture, and I'll explain what those two grains are here a little later in the talk. Plus with Weiler's non-loading formula. This results in a consistent cut on the surface. And also, not only do you get those maximum cuts, as you see on aluminum, since it's a Type 1, you've got a reduced risk of interference with the workpiece. You've got a contaminant-free wheel, and I clarified what that meant by contaminant-free earlier. And the two grains are silicon carbide mixed in with aluminum oxide, blend of grains combined with Weiler's non-loading formula, helps minimize the loading on the wheel. The next one we have is the Type 27. And by the way, let me back up there. The Type 1 comes in a 7/8 arbor. And when we get down here to the Tiger Aluminum Type 27, that comes in a style that's called a depressed center wheel. This gives you, again, the combining grain of silicon carbide, aluminum oxide, the non-loading formula we talked about, so it maximizes cuts on aluminum. You're going to have increased clearance and offset while cutting with this style. Cutoff operations allow for aluminum bolts and aluminum extrusion. You're going to have flush cutting capabilities, the contaminant-free wheel, And we're going to talk about the combo wheel in a minute down there, as you see on the list, but we'll mention that later. But it also comes in 7/8 and in a 5/8 by 11 arbor hole option. All right, next we have is our Weiler Tiger aluminum grinding wheels. Now, grinding wheels are used where there's a need to remove a sizable amount of base material. It's very common to be seen to be used in, say, structural applications. And actually, before I get a little further in this recently, well, 2 days before we had our class today, we had a customer, an individual, that an attendee had signed up and asked a few pre-questions. And one of the questions they asked is, what would be the best product to use on aluminum that is going to be welded after grinding? There's always going to be a concern while processing aluminum about the possibility of contamination. But again, our Tiger aluminum are formulated with contaminant-free binding agents. There's the repeat, but it's important to repeat it. That will not contribute to issues in the workpiece. Now, there's a possibility of other things around you that may cause contamination, but be sure that you are thoughtful and mindful as you are going into actually starting to process on the aluminum. Okay, now the Type 27, the good thing about these, they also allow you, again, for heavy stock removal, scale removal, weld removal, weld blending, edge beveling, to name a few. Again, the non-loading formula, the combination of the 2 grains, and this comes in a 7/8 and a 5/8 by 11 arbor option. Now, the next one is a Type 27 combo wheel. Now, in the past, I didn't sell a lot of these. Now, I'm starting to sell more. As a matter of fact, I'm getting ready to, it's not the aluminum one. I've got the Tiger AO. I'm getting ready to move, but it's the design, which I'm going to start pushing this more and more. But I've been selling more and more of these combo wheels simply because of the ability for you as an operator to just, cut and then go back to grinding. And the advantage you have with this combo wheel, you have the 2 grain mixture we talked about. We have the non-loading formula. You have the flexibility of cutting and then going right back to grinding. And the other thing that allows you to do when working with this is you can, like I said, the cut. When you cut, that gives you the, let me back up here. When you cut, you're going to develop a little more burrs than you normally do when using a 1/8 inch thick grinding combo wheel. It's not going to be the same as when you're using a basic 045 wheel. It's going to produce more. But the easy thing is you just go right back with your right angle grinder and just clean that right off. So it adds that added benefit of not having to switch out from a grinding wheel to a cutoff wheel. And then we're going to take here a brief intermission as Nate Schmidt, our marketing director that spoke at the very beginning of this talk for Weiler, is going to give us a chance to answer a question and win a prize. And then Elliot's going to come back after that.
Thanks, Andrew. Again, we're going to do a quick giveaway here to win a Weiler branded power pack for your mobile devices. And again, the way you answer the question is by posting your response in the chat function within Zoom. So the first person to give a correct answer will win the power pack. So the question is, name one benefit of using the Weiler Tiger aluminum cutoff wheel. Again, name one benefit of using the Weiler Tiger aluminum cutoff wheel. And again, you can post that answer in chat and we will announce the winner at the end of the webinar. And just a quick reminder, again, if you have any questions as we go through the webinar, feel free to pose those in the Q&A function within Zoom, and we'll answer those questions at the end of the webinar. I'll turn it over to you, Elliot.
Thank you, Nate. Just getting my video back here. All right, everybody. So I'm going to be talking about some of the coated abrasive side, and then we'll get into some non-woven and wire products. So specifically what we're going to talk about right now is resin fiber disc, or what we like to call them Weiler RFDs. So with the resin fiber disc, you can see here on the screen, we have 2 separate options, right? So how do we know as an end user or distributor, which one are we going to go for? Which one are we going to use? So as I talk about Tiger ceramic, that's going to be a ceramic grain. So it's going to be a versatile, self-sharpening, very strong grain. And then the other one we have on here is Tiger aluminum RFD as a resin fiber disc. That one's going to be an aluminum oxide grain. So when we look at both of these products side by side, we really want to walk into an end user and understand what we're processing, what these team members are going to be doing on the floor. So with a ceramic grain, specifically, it is extremely versatile, right? So we could use that on carbon, we can use that on stainless steel, we could use it on aluminum. The Tiger ceramic resin fiber disc has top coat, be able to keep grinding temperatures down. And then it also comes in both the 7/8 arbor and a 5/8 11 hub version. But mainly you're looking at a little bit of a higher price because you have that versatility and you have that very sharp, self-sharpening ceramic grain. With the Tiger aluminum RFD or resin fiber disc, it is an extremely great product. It is also top coated specifically for aluminum, but the only thing is that you are going to only be able to really use this to its full extent on aluminum itself. Specifically formulated for aluminum, as in with Tiger ceramic, we're looking at just a wide array of different options. And then Tiger ceramics cost is just going to be a little bit higher because of that versatility. Both of these products are contaminant free, so we don't have to worry about any type of post-processing cleanup with acetones or any type of solvents. We've actually had our Tiger aluminum resin fiber disc third-party tested to make sure that we don't have any of these leftover contaminants after welding. So we know we can go straight from using an RFD to grind our fillet welds down, or sorry, grind our flat welds down, and then go directly to welding right over top again. So kind of explains us a little bit between the ceramic RFD resin fiber disc and the Tiger aluminum resin fiber disc. So what if we need to go something a little bit heavier, right? So what if we go to our flat disc version? So one of the big things I'm always asked is, when should I use a resin fiber disc compared to a flat disc? So resin fiber discs will remove material extremely fast, but they have a limited amount of life. With a flat disc, you do have that removal rate, but you also have an extended period of life. So if you're doing a lot more material removal, a flat disc might be better off for you. If you're doing some seam weld cleanup, some flattening of welds, an RFD might be that perfect amount to get it done quickly and move on. So let's talk a little bit about their Tiger ceramic flat disc, and then we'll talk about the brand new Tiger aluminum flat disc, as you can see on the screen here. So again, Tiger ceramic, self-sharpening ceramic grain, has that top coat to keep everything cool as we're grinding. And then we're minimizing loading with all of these top-coated products. And again, contaminant-free. We have the versatility again of the ceramic grain, being able to do carbon, stainless, and aluminum, while the Tiger aluminum, specifically formulated for aluminum processing, is going to give you the best performance on aluminum. This was tested on 3000, 5000, and 6000 series aluminum, and we know it works very well on all of them. As you can see from the photo here, it is going to be a paired flap design. So we have a zirconia alumina flap, which is the blue flap underneath. That flap's really used for pure stock removal. It is not a top-coated flap, so traditionally that wouldn't work very well for aluminum, but we've paired it with a top-coated aluminum oxide flap to be able to keep basically that lubrication moving, so we don't have any overloading, anything like that, where aluminum shreds are actually covering up the grain, increasing heat, and then causing us to push down even harder to be able to make it move. So this actual Tiger aluminum flap disc is going to be coming out late September. So it's actually not even hit the market just yet. We have a number of different options in this, and at the end of the program, we'll give you a link to be able to request a sample, so we can get that out to you, and you can get it in your hands and try it for yourself, and really just see how well this product removes aluminum and keeps that post-processing time down. All right, so we're going to move on to some non-woven products here. So traditionally, non-woven products aren't labeled as for aluminum use, but just all know that the open construction with these non-woven products lend themselves to be used on aluminum very well. So specifically, I used to use hand pads all the time to do some cleanup if there was any type of oxide layer after a weld. We would use that in wet finishing some aluminum work, and then doing some directional finishes on some maybe aluminum table legs, any type of aluminum furniture, stuff like that. I would use that specifically for directional finishes. And then we would actually use the pads themselves underneath orbital sanders to get a really nice non-directional finish, very consistent. and you wouldn't have very much of a problem with them loading because of that non-woven open structure. One of my favorite products really to use to blend welds after we've taken the majority of stock out to build them, to kind of blend them into their parent material, are surface conditioning discs. So we have these in the options of coarse, medium, and fine. So depending on what your scratch pattern needs to look like, in the end, you have the option of all three. And then the open construction, again, minimizes that heat input and then minimizes loading as well. But to get a very consistent weld blend from that weld to the parent material, the surface conditioning disc does a great job. And then one of the other pretty cool products that I've used in the past too are inner leaf flap wheels. So just as they're said, we have a sliver of non-woven material and then a slice of coated abrasive. So you can see these down at the bottom here. The best part about this wheel is I used to use this for finishing all the time, non-directional finishing for blending basically. The best part really is that it's conformable. It has so much material that it's actually able to bend around corners. And on any extruded aluminum, you know that there's generally some sharper corners that we need to knock down. This does a really great job of knocking that stuff down. Very good for deburring aluminum as well. So we'll move on to wire here. So again, same thing with kind of like non-woven, wire brushes really aren't specifically called out for aluminum, but you can use them on aluminum, and I suggest it really. We just want to make sure that we're using a stainless steel wire when we're working with aluminum with any type of wire brush. And then we want to use the lightest gauge of wire that we can find for the job. And you're going to be able to find different types of wire gauges and different profiles of brushes. So whether it's a wheel, a cup, a scratch brush, an end brush, there's going to be different gauges of wire. So as we look through different wire sizes, we want to make sure we have the smallest available. And mainly these products are going to be used for cleaning welds. I've used it a lot for taking powder coat off of products to, if there was a failed weld, to remove paint and be able to keep that that product from not loading completely. The open construction on wire lends itself to not holding on to those paint particles and just really shedding them off. And if you've ever used a wire brush on any type of powder coat or paint like that, you'll understand what I'm speaking to in there. But the biggest thing we want to look at when we're processing any type of aluminum with a wire brush is the pressure we're using. So if we press too hard, you're going to lend yourself to some premature wire breakage, which isn't very good. It ends up in your clothes. It's just nothing that you really want to come home with. So when we use a wire brush, we want to make sure that it is light pressure. You basically want to treat those wire tips as a peening hammer. So you just want the tips of the wire to skip across the piece, and you want that to do the work. And then really choosing the right brush for the profile. An end brush is great for fillet welds. Some sort of cut brush is great for flat surfaces, for large area. Scratch brushes and brushes are really good for any type of fillet welds, cleaning those up. So making sure that we have that right brush profile paired with the right pressure, you're going to have a really good outcome with the amount of different wire brushes that you have the ability to use. So here I am going to pass it on to Andrew to do some of the final thoughts here.
All right, thanks, Elliot. What we're going to look at now is just aluminum abrasives, the final thoughts, some best practices, things that we may have noticed through the course of this opportunity, this lesson, this webinar. Number one, choose the correct abrasive for the job. We learned that there's no such thing as one size fits all. Make sure to get the proper abrasive for the workpiece that you were working on. Look at the options. Your district sales manager will be more than happy to work with you and help you find what you need as it relates to your job. Also, it's key to have a focused approach. It's key to have focused approach in any time when you're doing a job that potentially could hurt you. Have the proper PPE. Make sure that you understand what it's like to work on aluminum, the general characteristics, the issues and possibilities of contamination when working with it, and the reality that it's an expensive material to process on. So be mindful and thoughtful of that. And also when you're processing, use the correct motion. Start with a tool, Always keep moving, keep regular flow movement going, and be careful and be thoughtful about the possible gouging that can occur on a potentially softer surface. And like was just mentioned, allow the tips of the wire brushes to do the job. You press too hard, you're going to increase the possibility of wire wire loss, and that wire tends to fly everywhere. It'll go in your neck, it'll wind up in your hat, your welding jacket, and maybe places you don't want it to, under your mask. So be very careful when using wire brushes in any operation, and also make sure to allow the grains and a flat disc and a resin fiber disc, a cutoff wheel to do the job and to work the hardest for you. And final thoughts, aluminum is less forgiving and more expensive. As I mentioned, pay attention to details paired with the correct abrasive will maximize productivity and reduce cost. Now what we want to do is, number one, we want to thank you for being here, and then also talk about some resources and next steps. You're going to be getting an email, those of you that attended, that you can link to, number one, the solutions guide, as you can see in that picture, for cleaning and finishing and cutting, grinding on aluminum. And also before we get into to talk about free samples, I want to also mention, just go to the WeilerAbrasives.com website, click on the top right under resources, and look at all the different solution guides and material. They have an excellent quality PDF guides that you can download and use at home. If you want physical copies, contact your local district sales manager. I make sure to carry, I have every one of those various guides in a plastic container in the back of my truck, and I carry a minimum of 2 boxes of the 4th edition catalog, which I'm trying to hold up here, which is excellent, and is also an education of itself that will help you to pick the right product. And lastly, be sure to request also with that, when you get that email, either through there or through your local district sales manager, free samples for our new upcoming Tiger aluminum flat disc. Now, Nate's going to come back online and tell you about, the next 2 Weiler Wednesdays coming up. And questions.
All right, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Elliot. Before we get into the Q&A, just a couple housekeeping things. So we did get a winner, so we had a lot of responses for the contest. The winner is Mark Kaufman. So Mark will reach out to you and get a hold of you so we can get you that mobile charging unit. Again, a couple more webinars we've got scheduled coming up in the coming months. So September, we're going to focus on stainless steel solutions. Again, another topic that was requested by you, the audience, and presents its own unique challenges. So we'll talk about stainless steel solutions. And then in October, we're going to talk about chop saws, gas saws, and stationary saws, and the products that are used on those pieces of equipment, and the proper selection and use of those products. So that'll be our October Weiler Wednesday webinar. And again, just a reminder, as Andrew said, we will send out a post webinar email with the resources that were mentioned on the call, but also a survey. And we'd appreciate if you would take the survey and give us your feedback on the webinar and what additional topics you'd like to hear about from us in the future.